Redditors who grew up with shady criminal parents. What did your mom or dad teach you was okay to do that you later learned was illegal or seriously frowned upon?
Unit heading up to the code 3 chase. Suspect.
My blood father was a drug dealer, and he often came home with some really nifty stuff. I later found out it was stuff he got from people who didn't have cash on them, but still wanted to buy. I think the thing I feel most guilty about was a Game Boy Advance I was given that we'd either only have for a little while or have forever. When he said that, it was usually forever. It had a heap of games with it, and I went through and started new games on all of them, erasing the existing save files. Well, he took it back after about a month, so I guess whoever it was paid up, and I feel really sorry for their kid. Mommy or daddy was an addict, and used their Game Boy Advance as collateral, and when they got it back, all their saves were gone. I was only a kid at the time, and didn't really know the context in which I was handed the thing, but I know it belonged to a kid since there were quite a few young child learning game cartridges alongside Mario and Pokemon. My dad grew up always in a fight. He was arrested several times, kicked out school because he was the poor kid, and Grandpa wouldn't put the bottle down long enough to pay his books. The obvious poor kid in every way. He took a lot of shit for it, but eventually got good with his fists just because he had to. He taught me that no matter what, if you are in a fight that the person who hit you is trying to take your life, there is no boys will be boys or fighting for fun. They hit you. They are trying to kill you. In those instances, I was to go for their eyes and their throat immediately. If they can't see and they can't breathe, they're fucked. You get to go earn your blood party. I beat the fuck out of 2 kids first week of kindergarten and got kicked out. We had therapists show up and the whole thing. My mom was a drug dealer. There are so many things I could list, but I'm on my phone, so just a few things off the top of my head. Smoking pot. When I was about 4, I chased my mom through the Woolworths drugstore screaming, "Mommy, Mommy, you dropped your joint. Don't you want your joint?" She hurried faster, shushing me, and I got a big talking to that afternoon, snorting coke. I was in the 2nd grade when I got sent to the principal's office for teaching my friends how to make lines with salt and use part of a milk straw to snort it. My mom was really pissed. Don't talk to cops or any straight people. I didn't know why at first, but I lived in terror of straight people. I got congratulations for making it through FBI questioning when I was probably 6 years old when they raided our land. SWAT teams are scary. Boobs are good for smuggling. Cleaning out stems and seeds is a fun summer job. Don't say anyone's name on the phone. Those are just a few things I immediately recall. Ooh, I forgot to add how every now and then people in our circle of friends would move far away for a while and change names, and we weren't ever allowed to call them by their old names. My mom also made us believe that morphine was an excellent pain reliever for all ages. Faking insurance claims. Usually off the back of a legitimate accident, broken window, blown down fence, small water leak, that involved no actual crime or theft from another party. My mother would exaggerate the damage, hide items that were stolen, and make a claim. She did this 3 or 4 times that I can recall. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so that was how we got new upgraded stuff every 5 years or so. As a kid, I was like, yeah, smart mom. Not my parents, but a friend's dad gave us some solid advice that I always remembered. Remember, boys, don't break the law when you're breaking the law. It applies in so many ways. For example, don't run a stop sign when you've got weed in the car. Or don't speed if your inspection is out of date. Or don't get the police called for a noise complaint if you've had a beer while underage. He was a shady guy, but oddly wise in many ways. It was normal for people in my family to be in and out of jail. It was normal for most of my family to have some sort of criminal record. We were always taught to not respect cops. For example, when my dad found weed in my 16-year-old sister's car, instead of reprimanding her for having it, he reprimanded her for how easy it would be for cops to find. We were always watching mob movies, and my dad would just gush about how classy and cool they were. It's just little stuff like that mostly, nothing like outrageous. If we were at home and they yelled, "Pigs!" we were to hide behind the couch and be silent. If we were in the car and they yelled, "Pigs!" we had to crawl into the floorboard and not move a muscle. I was kidnapped in grade 3 by my dad's supplier. He held us for 2 days. We had no idea. My sister and I met him before, lots of times. When he showed up at school and said our parents were on vacation and to go with him, we did. They had soda and Oreos and a puppy and a Sega Genesis, and it was the best weekend of my life. Found out 20 years later when my mom was complaining about never having had a vacation in her life. I reminded her of that vacation and she said, You idiot, you were kidnapped. Oh, cool. Wow. At least the kidnapping drug dealers were nice to you. Sounds like the plot to a shitty comedy where having the kids around convinces the dealers to go straight and open a daycare center. I don't know, and probably will never know, what my parents did. However, we would leave the house at nighttime and go drive through certain parks. Occasionally, my parents would panic and tell us to hide. We had to crawl onto the floorboard in the back of a tiny Buick. My dad came home with injuries sometimes, and my mom always said he fell. And finally, in that particular town, they hated the cops. They claimed they were all corrupt. Maybe they were. You should listen to the podcast called The Clearing. It's about a woman who, in her 40s, realized her dad was a serial killer. Catching him helped solve some murders and brought some peace to the families involved. My parents were almost involved in a cult at one point in time, and my then-girlfriend's parents were very involved. I learned from her parents that stealing and scanning people was okay as long as they clearly had enough, and some of it was donated to the cult. My parents never actively discouraged me, but they never said it was okay either, and I honestly never did steal anything. Her parents also tried to convince me that it was God's will for my ex to have a child at 17, and that she would get one from one of the cult members if I wasn't up for the task. Really creepy shit. And I'm glad I moved countries and got away from it all. My mom and dad are trained artists and teachers, and they would frequently counterfeit things like parking permits, coupons, doctor's notes, etc. It was wild. My mom was put on house arrest for drug charges, ankle bracelet, and a breathalyzer device that would go off in random times of the day to make sure she wasn't drinking. We had to have a whole separate landline for this purpose. As she got further into her house arrest, she'd start to really try to pull sly shit and take gambles on when her random drug screenings would be. She would make me take the breathalyzers, and I think once or twice she even had me pee into a cigar case that she was planning on stuffing up her you-know-where to fudge the test. The memory is pretty hazy. The irony of it all is that she got nabbed for failing a drug test, claiming that it was after getting Novocaine at the dentist's office. This was like 20 years ago, so IDK if it was possible on drug tests back then. If it was true, then it is hilarious because she felt like she didn't deserve to get caught, completely ignoring the fact that she deserved to get caught all the other times she pulled her shady shit. My dad stole a few things in a sneaky way so my brother and I would have one each. In one instance, for example, he bought a Game Boy game. He brought it back to the car, removed the cartridge, and took it back into the store saying the case was empty. He did the same thing with those Pikachu Tamagotchi things. I think his biggest steal was a PlayStation 2. He actually did purchase one. My mom went in and picked it up. But when leaving the store, the door person didn't tear the receipt. So, my dad took the receipt back in, picked up another PS2, stuck the receipt on it, and walked out. The door person tore the receipt this time, but obviously didn't pay attention to the time of sale. Dad also ran a huge business of installing chips in PlayStation so they could play copied games. He would rent games, burn a copy, then sell copies to other people. We had a whole library and catalog of copied games, and Dad had quite a few customers. Looking back, I see how dodgy it was, and why he told me not to tell too many people about it. My dad was a mechanic. The ones that stick out was when he would charge for a new replacement part, and then go to the local junkyard and get the part from there. If the customer asked up front, he would be honest and offer the two options. Junkyard part =, cheap, but likely reliable, or new =, expensive, and only parts warranty. If they didn't ask most of the time, it was a junkyard part. Rarely got in trouble or called out since his prices were a fraction of regular shops. Oh, I guess the other main shady part was that he wasn't a legit certified mechanic, and most business was cash under the table. His apprentice is now my mechanic, and he learned from my dad's mistakes. He provides receipts, boxes, and shows me where he installed the new part, and it's always shiny and new, minus obvious grease handling installation marks. Drugs. I had no idea they were illegal until I was a lot older than I should have been to understand they're illegal. My father was a grower and distributes to a well-known MC he was a part of. We grew up running around pot fields. I slept on a couch most of my childhood because all the rooms had been converted in hydroponic setups. Our roof space was converted into storage where it was garbage bags of weed, around 100, 150 skew, all stacked on top of each other. Other stupid shit too. Apparently owning unregistered firearms is illegal. You need a driver's license to drive a vehicle. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the channel, there are so many cool stories. Also, share your story in the comments. Bye.